Forget quaint English cottages and village greens. Hidden in Britain's most dramatic peaks are settlements so extraordinary they seem ripped from fantasy novels. Places where postmen arrive by helicopter, children learn avalanche warnings before multiplication tables, and residents wake to find their homes buried under snowdrifts taller than London buses. These aren't ordinary villages. They're communities perched at elevations rivaling Swiss ski resorts, where winter temperatures plummet to minus 27 degrees Celsius, and hurricane-force winds are routine. Stone cottages built like Arctic fortresses house people who live closer to clouds than neighbours, burning more fuel in a month than most London homes use yearly. Here, pubs close not for licensing hours, but because stepping outside could kill you. Schools stay shut for entire winters while children learn via radio. Emergency food supplies aren't for disasters, they're for the seasonal reality of complete isolation. One Welsh village with fewer than 200 residents generates more mountain rescue call-outs than entire alpine regions. Rescue teams train in conditions so extreme that military special forces observe their exercises. Prepare to discover 10 settlements existing at the very edge of habitability. Places that will shatter everything you thought you knew about British geography. 1. Flash, Staffordshire. England's rooftop village. At 1,519 feet above sea level, Flash claims to be the highest village in England. But this tiny Staffordshire settlement is far more than just a statistical curiosity. Perched on the wild moorlands of the Peak District, Flash exists in a world where the rules of normal English village life simply don't apply. The 27 residents of this remarkable community have learned to live like Arctic explorers in the heart of England, developing survival strategies that would impress polar expedition teams. In winter, Flash is frequently snowbound, with drifts that can isolate the village for weeks at a time. But this isn't the gentle snowfall of Christmas cards. These are accumulations that bury ground floor windows, create tunnels between buildings, and transform the landscape into an alien white wilderness where familiar landmarks disappear entirely. The residents have learned to maintain stockpiles of food, fuel, and medical supplies that would sustain them through siege conditions, because that's essentially what winter represents in Flash. Every vehicle in the village is equipped for extreme conditions. Four-wheel drive systems, snow chains, emergency communication equipment, and survival gear are standard rather than optional. Residents check weather forecasts with the intensity of ship captains reading storm warnings, because the difference between accurate meteorological information and wishful thinking can mean the difference between a routine journey and a life-threatening emergency. The village sits at the meeting point of 3 counties, Staffordshire, Derbyshire, and Cheshire, a geographical quirk that made it a haven for smugglers and counterfeiters in the 18th century. The term flash money, meaning counterfeit currency, originated here, where criminals could literally step across county boundaries to escape pursuing constables. The complex jurisdictional situation meant that law enforcement officers from one county had no authority once suspects crossed into neighbouring territory, creating a perfect environment for illegal activity. But Flash's most extraordinary feature isn't its elevation or its criminal history. It's how its residents have adapted to living in what is essentially Britain's answer to a Himalayan village. Every house is built like a fortress against the elements, with walls thick enough to withstand hurricane-force winds and heating systems that could warm buildings twice their size. Windows are small and strategically positioned to minimize heat loss while maximizing natural light during the brief winter days when the sun manages to penetrate the frequent cloud cover. Local weather records show that Flash experiences weather patterns that occur nowhere else in England. Temperature variations of 20 degrees Celsius in a single day are common, and the village regularly records the lowest temperatures in England, while locations just 10 miles away bask in mild conditions. Meteorologists have established permanent monitoring equipment in Flash because the village's microclimate provides insights into weather phenomena that don't occur anywhere else in the British Isles. The elevation creates atmospheric effects that residents have learned to read like a natural barometer. cloud formations that predict weather changes hours before conventional forecasting can detect them. Wind patterns that carry sounds from impossible distances, allowing experienced locals to hear approaching weather systems long before they become visible. Temperature inversions that create surreal visual effects, making distant hills appear to float above the landscape like islands in a white sea of fog. What secrets do the ancient burial mounds scattered around Flash contain? And why do meteorologists still struggle to explain the village's impossible microclimate? Local archaeologists have discovered evidence of human activity in the area stretching back to the Bronze Age, suggesting that ancient peoples recognized something significant about this particular location. Stone circles and burial chambers dot the surrounding moorland, their purpose lost to history, but their presence indicating that Flash has been considered special for millennia. 2. Braemar, Aberdeenshire, Scotland's frozen sentinel. Sitting at an elevation of 339 metres in the heart of the Cairngorms, Braemar is more than just a highland village. It's a testament to human endurance in one of Britain's most unforgiving environments. This community of 500 souls exists in a landscape so harsh that it regularly records temperatures that would be impressive in Siberia. The village holds the unofficial British record for the coldest temperature ever recorded, -27.2 degrees Celsius in 1895. A reading so extreme that some meteorologists initially refused to believe it. But anyone who has spent a winter in Braemar knows that such temperatures are not anomalies. They're simply part of life in a place where Arctic conditions can develop with little warning. The village sits in a natural bowl surrounded by some of the highest peaks in the British Isles, including Ben Macdui, Breariach, Cairn Toul, and Score and Lochain Wine, creating a natural amphitheatre that traps cold air and creates the village's legendary microclimate. The surrounding Cairngorm Plateau represents Britain's largest area of subarctic wilderness, a landscape so vast and empty that experienced mountaineers can walk for days without seeing another human being. This isn't the gentle countryside of southern England, but genuine wilderness where survival skills mean the difference between life and death. The plateau experiences weather conditions that rival anything found in the Arctic, with wind speeds that can exceed hurricane force and temperature changes so rapid they can catch even experienced mountain travelers off guard. What makes Braemar truly extraordinary is how its residents have not just survived, but thrived in these conditions for over 900 years. The village is famous for its Highland Games, an annual celebration where local athletes compete in traditional Scottish sports while surrounded by some of the most spectacular mountain scenery in Europe. These aren't tourist attractions, but genuine celebrations of Highland culture, where competition is fierce and traditions stretching back centuries are maintained with pride and precision. The village's royal connections run deep. Queen Victoria fell so in love with the area that she built Balmoral Castle just 8 miles away, and the current royal family still retreats here to experience the raw beauty of the Scottish Highlands. Victoria's journals describe the Highland landscape in terms that border on the mystical, and she often wrote about sensing ancient presences in the mountain mists. Her detailed observations of Highland life provide insights into how the area's unique character has influenced even the most privileged visitors. Local mountain rescue teams speak off the record of rescue missions that don't appear in official logs. Searches for hikers who vanish in perfect weather conditions, leaving behind evidence that suggests they simply walked into the wilderness and chose never to return. Equipment found arranged in patterns that don't match any known emergency protocol. Rescue operations that lead teams into areas of the Cairngorms, where even experienced Highland guides report feeling unsettled by the landscape itself. The surrounding mountains create their own weather systems that operate independently of regional meteorological patterns. Braemar can experience blizzard conditions, while valleys just 20 miles away enjoy mild sunshine. Temperature inversions create optical effects that make distant peaks appear to float above the landscape. Acoustic phenomena carries sounds across impossible distances, allowing residents to hear conversations from miles away when atmospheric conditions are exactly right. Why do the cairngorms around Braemar seem to call people into their depths? And what do the ancient Pictish symbols carved into stones throughout the valley really mean? The surrounding landscape is rich with archaeological evidence of continuous human habitation stretching back thousands of years. Pictish symbol stones, whose meanings remain mysterious, are scattered throughout the area. Medieval settlements, abandoned during the Highland clearances, dot the mountainsides like ghost towns, their roofless stone houses testament to a vanished way of life. Nestled in the shadow of the Cairngorm Mountains, Aviemore occupies one of the most strategically important positions in the Scottish Highlands. This former railway village has evolved into Britain's unofficial capital of mountain adventure, where granite peaks reach altitudes that create a landscape rivaling anything found in the Alps. The town sits within the Cairngorms National Park, Britain's largest national park, covering an area larger than the entire county of Kent. But Aviemore's relationship with these mountains goes far deeper than tourism. This is a community that lives and breathes mountain culture, where children learn to read weather patterns before they learn to read books, and where the phrase "just popping up the mountain" might mean a 12-hour expedition into genuine wilderness. The surrounding peaks create conditions so similar to polar environments that everyone from Victorian polar explorers to modern Antarctic researchers have used the Cairngorms as their training ground. The village's transformation from a remote Highland railway stop to a world-class adventure destination began in the 1960s, but its roots stretch back over 1,000 years. Ancient Caledonian forests of Scots pine still cover the mountainsides, remnants of the great wood that once covered all of Scotland. These forests are home to red deer, golden eagles, and the elusive Scottish wildcat, creatures that represent the last remnants of Scotland's primeval wilderness. What makes Aviemore truly remarkable is its position as a testing ground for extreme environment research. The surrounding mountains create weather conditions that occur nowhere else in Britain. Temperature variations that can shift 40 degrees Celsius within a few hours. Wind patterns that create localized storm systems. Snow conditions that persist well into summer on the high plateaus, allowing year-round winter sports training in a country not typically associated with alpine conditions. The Rothian Mercus forest, which surrounds the village, contains trees that are over 400 years old, survivors of centuries of Highland history. Local rangers speak of encounters with wildlife that doesn't appear in any field guide, creatures glimpsed in the ancient forest that seem to belong to an earlier, wilder Scotland. Traditional Highland folklore describes creatures that inhabit the deep forests, beings that are neither fully animal nor human, guardians of knowledge that predates written history. During the Aurora season, Aviemore becomes one of the best places in Britain to witness the Northern Lights, but some residents report seeing lights in the sky that follow no known pattern. Atmospheric phenomena that have baffled astronomers and meteorologists for decades. Light formations that seem to respond to human presence, changing intensity and direction in ways that suggest intelligence rather than natural occurrence. What do the ancient forests around Aviemore remember from the last ice age? And why do satellite images sometimes show structures in the high Cairngorms that aren't there when ground teams investigate? Local hill walkers occasionally report finding evidence of human presence in areas that should be inaccessible. Structures built from local stone that don't appear on any map or historical record. Archaeological surveys of the high plateau reveal evidence of human activity that predates known Highland settlement patterns, suggesting that ancient peoples were using these mountains for purposes that remain mysterious. 4. Keswick, Cumbria. The adventure capital. Sublimely situated for the northern fells, Keswick is in walking distance of lakeland giants such as Blencathra and Skiddaw, making it the undisputed adventure capital of England's most dramatic mountain region. But this Cumbrian market town is far more than just a pretty base camp. It's a community that exists in constant dialogue with some of the most dangerous and beautiful mountains in Britain. Surrounded by peaks that rise directly from the shores of Derwentwater, Keswick occupies a position of such dramatic beauty that it almost seems unreal. The highest peak is Scafell Pike, 978 metres, 3,209 feet above sea level, and at least 3 other summits exceed 3,000 feet, creating a natural amphitheatre of stone that has inspired everyone from romantic poets to modern rock climbers. Mountain comparison. The fells around Keswick share characteristics with the Scottish Highlands' more accessible peaks. Dramatic but not technically difficult, offering both gentle walks and serious mountaineering challenges within the same vista. What sets Keswick apart is its role as the birthplace of modern mountaineering. The town's outdoor shops and guide services have equipped expeditions to every major mountain range on Earth, and techniques pioneered on the nearby crags have been used to conquer Everest, K2, and the most challenging peaks in the Andes and Himalayas. The mountains are chiefly Ordovician slates and volcanic rocks, with some limestone and outcrops of other rock types, creating a geological complexity that has made the Lake District a natural laboratory for understanding mountain formation and erosion. The town's position at the heart of the Lake District means it experiences some of England's most extreme weather. Annual rainfall can exceed 150 inches, and the surrounding mountains create their own weather systems that can change from sunshine to storm in minutes. But Keswick harbours secrets that go beyond its role as an adventure destination. The surrounding fells are rich with archaeological mysteries, stone circles, ancient settlements, and mysterious earthworks that suggest the area has been considered sacred for thousands of years. Local mountain rescue teams deal with more call-outs than almost anywhere else in Britain. But experienced rescuers speak privately of incidents that defy logical explanation. Cases where missing hikers are found in locations that should be impossible to reach, or where rescue equipment malfunctions in ways that suggest external interference. Why do the mountains around Keswick seem to test human limits in ways that go beyond simple physical challenge? And what do the ancient stone circles scattered throughout the fells really commemorate? 5. Fort William, Highland, Scotland's mountain metropolis. The town itself is busy year-round, and there is a lively community of fellow outdoor enthusiasts. But Fort William is far more than just a Highland market town. Sitting in the shadow of Ben Nevis, Britain's highest mountain at 1,345 metres, this community of 10,000 people serves as the unofficial capital of British mountaineering. The town occupies a position of such strategic importance that it has been continuously inhabited for over 2,000 years. Ancient Celtic settlements, Roman fortifications, and medieval castles dot the surrounding landscape, while the modern town serves as the starting point for some of the most challenging mountain adventures in the British Isles. Mountain comparison. Fort William's setting resembles that of Chamonix in the French Alps, a valley town completely dominated by massive peaks that rise directly from the settlement, creating a landscape where civilization and wilderness exist in dramatic juxtaposition. What makes Fort William truly extraordinary is its role as the testing ground for extreme mountain sports. The town hosts the Mountain Bike World Championships on tracks so technically challenging that they've redefined what's possible on 2 wheels. The nearby ski resort operates on slopes so steep that they're used to train Olympic downhill races. But Ben Nevis itself is what truly defines Fort William's character. Britain's highest mountain is not just a peak. It's a weather system unto itself, capable of generating Arctic conditions even in summer. The mountain has claimed over 100 lives since records began, and experienced climbers speak of conditions on the summit plateau that rival anything found in the Himalayas. The surrounding landscape is scattered with the remains of ancient settlements, medieval castles, and more mysteriously, stone structures whose purpose remains unknown. Local archaeologists have discovered evidence of Bronze Age activity on the high peaks, suggesting that ancient peoples were climbing these mountains for reasons that had nothing to do with sport or exploration. During World War II, the area around Fort William was used for secret military training, preparing commandos for operations in Norway and other mountainous regions. Some of these training areas remain classified, and local hikers occasionally discover military artifacts that suggest activities far beyond conventional warfare preparation. The town's position at the western end of the Great Glen, a geological fault line that cuts across the entire Scottish Highlands, places it at the centre of some of Britain's most active seismic activity. While earthquakes are rare, local residents report periodic mountain movements that don't appear on any seismograph. What secrets do the classified military sites around Fort William still contain? And why do climbers on Ben Nevis sometimes report radio communications in languages that don't match any known military or emergency services? 6. Llanberis, Gwynedd, the Slate Kingdom. Nestled beneath the towering presence of Snowdon, Wales' highest peak at 1,085 metres, Llanberis exists in a landscape so dramatically carved by human industry that it resembles an open-air cathedral of stone. This former slate quarrying town sits beside the deepest lake in Wales, surrounded by mountains that bear the scars of over 200 years of industrial mining. The Dynawig Quarry, which dominates the mountainside above the town, was once the largest slate quarry in the world. Its terraced walls rise over 400 meters up the mountainside, creating an artificial landscape that rivals the Grand Canyon for sheer scale and visual impact. Mountain comparison. The quarried mountains around Llanberis resemble the terraced mining landscapes of Peru's Andes, dramatic human modifications to already spectacular natural scenery, creating a hybrid landscape that is both industrial and sublime. What makes Llanberis truly remarkable is how the community has transformed from industrial powerhouse to adventure destination while preserving its unique character. The town is now home to the National Slate Museum, but more importantly, it serves as the base for the Snowdon Mountain Railway, the only rack railway in Britain which carries visitors to the summit of Wales's highest peak. The surrounding mountains are honeycombed with tunnels, caverns, and abandoned workings that create an underground world of extraordinary complexity. The Dynawig Power Station, built inside the mountain itself, is one of Europe's largest pumped storage hydroelectric schemes, capable of generating 1,728 megawatts of electricity in just 16 seconds. But Llanberis harbours secrets that go far beyond its industrial heritage. The surrounding mountains are rich with prehistoric sites, stone circles, burial chambers, and hill forts that suggest continuous human activity for over 4,000 years. Local archaeologists believe that the area's slate deposits were being quarried in the Bronze Age, making it one of Europe's oldest industrial sites. The town's position beneath Snowdon places it at the heart of Welsh mountain culture. This is where the techniques of modern rock climbing were pioneered, where mountain rescue was first organised, and where generations of climbers have tested themselves against some of the most challenging routes in Britain. Local mountain guides speak of phenomena on Snowdon that don't appear in any guidebook, acoustic anomalies where voices carry impossible distances, weather patterns that seem to centre on specific locations, and areas where electronic equipment consistently malfunctions. The abandoned slate quarries have become a world-class destination for extreme sports. Rock climbing, mountain biking, and even underground diving in the flooded chambers. But some areas remain off-limits, and local authorities refuse to explain why certain sections of the quarry complex are permanently sealed. What lies hidden in the sealed sections of the Dynawig Quarry? And why do electronic devices sometimes pick up signals on Snowdon that don't match any known transmission source? 7. Betuizi Coed, Conwy. The artist's gateway perched at the gateway to Snowdonia, where ancient oak forests meet rushing mountain rivers. Betuizi Coed has earned its reputation as one of Wales's most beautiful villages. But this Victorian mountain resort, whose name translates to prayer house in the wood, is far more than just a picturesque stopover. It's a community that exists at the intersection of wilderness and civilization. The village sits at the confluence of three valleys, surrounded by the dramatic peaks of the Carnadow Range and bisected by the River Conwy as it crashes through a series of spectacular gorges and waterfalls. The combination of mountain drama and woodland beauty has made Betws y Coed a magnet for artists for over 150 years. Mountain comparison. The surrounding Carnadow Range shares characteristics with Scotland's Cairngorms, vast rolling plateaus that suddenly drop into deep valleys, creating a landscape that alternates between gentle and savage within the space of a few hundred meters. What sets Betws y Coed apart is its role as the birthplace of mountain tourism in Wales. The arrival of the railway in 1868 transformed a remote Welsh village into an international destination, and the town became the base for Victorian expeditions that pioneered climbing techniques still used today. The Pontyper Bridge, a medieval stone arch spanning the Conwy, has become an icon of Welsh mountain architecture. Local folklore claims it was built in a single night by supernatural forces, and modern engineers admit they're still not entirely sure how medieval builders achieved such perfect proportions using only hand tools. The surrounding forests hide remnants of much older civilizations. Roman roads snake through the valleys, while Celtic hill forts crown strategic peaks. Local historians believe that during the Dark Ages, this region served as a refuge for British kingdoms fleeing Saxon invasions. And treasure hunters still search for lost royal hoards in the mountain caves. But Betws y Coed's most extraordinary feature is its microclimate. The village sits at the meeting point of several weather systems, creating conditions so unique that meteorologists have established a permanent monitoring station here. Temperature variations of 15 degrees Celsius between the village and surrounding peaks are common, and the area experiences weather phenomena found nowhere else in Wales. The surrounding mountains offer some of Wales' most challenging climbing, but local guides speak of routes that seem to change from season to season, holds that appear and disappear, and rock faces that seem more difficult than their technical ratings suggest. Ancient Celtic traditions remain strong in Betws y Coed, and local residents speak of the Tylwyth Teg, supernatural beings said to inhabit the ancient forests. Modern visitors sometimes report encounters that echo these old tales. Figures glimpsed through morning mist, voices calling from empty mountainsides, and the distinct feeling of being guided through the forest by unseen presences. What do the ancient forests around Betws y Coed remember from the last ice age? And why do the mountain climbing routes seem to present different challenges to different climbers? 8. Pitlochry, Perth and Kinross. The Highland Heart. Nestled in the Tummel Valley, where the dramatic Highland Mountains meet the gentler landscapes of central Scotland, Pitlochry occupies one of the most strategically beautiful positions in the British Isles. This Victorian resort town, built along the banks of the River Tummel and surrounded by forest-covered peaks that blaze gold in autumn, serves as the gateway between two distinct worlds. The town sits in a natural amphitheatre of mountains, with Ben Vrackie rising to the north like a Highland sentinel and the Tay Forest stretching endlessly to the west. Here, ancient Caledonian forests of Scots pine and birch still clothe the mountainsides, and red deer roam freely through landscapes that have remained essentially unchanged for millennia. Mountain comparison. The mountains around Pitlochry resemble the Appalachians of New England, forested peaks of moderate height but immense character, with a complex history of human settlement stretching back thousands of years. What makes Pitlochry truly special is its role as the meeting point of Highland and Lowland Scotland. For centuries, this was where Highland drovers brought their cattle south to Lowland markets, and where Highland clans gathered for both trade and warfare. The mountains around the town are crossed by ancient drove roads that tell the story of Scotland's complex cultural geography. The town's Victorian development was sparked by Queen Victoria's love affair with the Scottish Highlands, and her frequent visits to nearby Blair Castle made the area fashionable among 19th century society. The magnificent Victorian architecture that still defines Pitlochry's character reflects this golden age of Highland tourism. But the town's history stretches back far beyond the Victorian era. The surrounding mountains are scattered with Pictish settlements, mysterious stone circles, and ancient fortifications that speak of a much older and more complex past. The nearby pass of Killiecrankie, where Jacobite forces won a famous victory in 1689, remains one of Scotland's most historically significant battlefields. The River Tummel, which flows through the heart of the town, has been dramatically altered by hydroelectric development, creating a series of artificial locks that have transformed the landscape. But local fishermen report strange phenomena in these new waters. Fish behavior that defies explanation, and acoustic anomalies that suggest the flooded valleys may be affecting the area in unexpected ways. The surrounding forests offer some of Scotland's finest woodland walking, but experienced hill walkers know these apparently gentle peaks can be deceptively dangerous. The combination of dense forest, unpredictable highland weather, and complex terrain has led to numerous search and rescue incidents over the years. Local folklore speaks of the Bodach, Highland spirits said to inhabit the ancient forests around Pitlochry. These aren't malevolent entities, but rather guardians of old knowledge, protectors of wisdom that predates written history. Modern visitors sometimes report encounters that echo these ancient tales, glimpses of figures in traditional Highland dress, voices speaking in archaic Gaelic, and the inexplicable feeling of being guided through the forest by unseen presences. What ancient knowledge do the forests around Pitlochry protect? And why do the artificial locks created by modern engineering seem to have awakened phenomena that were better left sleeping? 9. Mallaig, Highland, the edge of the world. At the end of the road to the Isles, where the Scottish mainland reaches toward the Inner Hebrides, Mallaig clings to existence on one of the most dramatically beautiful and weather-beaten coastlines in Europe. This fishing village of barely 800 souls sits beneath towering peaks that rise directly from the Atlantic, creating a landscape so wild and remote that it feels like the edge of the civilized world. The village occupies a position of such strategic beauty that it has served as the gateway to the Scottish Islands for over 1,000 years. Here, where the mountains of Knoydart and Ardnamurchan meet the sea, ancient clan territories converged in a landscape that has witnessed some of the most turbulent events in Highland history. Mountain comparison. The peaks around Mallaig resemble Norway's Lofoten Islands, dramatic summits rising directly from deep water, creating a landscape where mountain and sea exist in perfect and terrible harmony. The remote, beautiful mountainous terrain includes the Munros of Ladder Bain, 1,020 metres, Luini Bain, 939 metres, Mial Buidye, 946 metres, and Sgurna Chiche, 1,040 metres, peaks so remote and challenging that they attract only the most serious mountaineers. This is wilderness in its purest form, vast areas where you can walk for days without seeing another human being. What makes Mallaig truly extraordinary is its role as the last outpost before the truly wild Highlands. The village serves as the terminus for the West Highland Railway, considered one of the most beautiful train journeys in the world, and as the ferry port for the Inner Hebrides. But beyond its transport connections, Mallaig exists as a community that has learned to thrive in one of Britain's most challenging environments. The surrounding landscape is scattered with the ruins of ancient settlements, evidence of a time when this remote coast supported a much larger population. Clearance villages abandoned during the Highland clearances of the 18th and 19th centuries dot the mountainsides like ghost towns, their roofless stone houses testament to a vanished way of life. But Mallaig harbours mysteries that go beyond its tragic history. The surrounding waters are among the deepest in Europe, and local fishermen speak of sonar readings that suggest structures on the seabed that are too regular to be natural. During World War II, these waters were used for secret naval exercises, and some operations remain classified to this day. The village's position at the meeting point of several ancient sea routes has made it a crossroads for centuries of Highland culture. Here, Gaelic traditions remain strong, and local residents speak of phenomena that echo the oldest Celtic legends. Lights beneath the water, voices calling from empty islands, and the sensation of being watched from the high peaks. Britain's most remote pub sits in the wilderness beyond Mallaig, accessible only by boat or on foot through some of Scotland's most challenging terrain. But even this extreme outpost of civilization pales compared to the true wilderness that surrounds it, a landscape so vast and empty that it has remained essentially unchanged since the last ice age. What lies hidden beneath the deep waters around Mallaig? And why do the mountains of Knoydart seem to guard secrets that the sea refuses to give up? 10. Wanlockhead, Dumfries and Galloway, Scotland's highest village. In 2007, the claim was upheld by the BBC, which settled a dispute with its rival claimant Wanlockhead in Dumfries and Galloway regarding which settlement could claim to be Britain's highest village. While Flash ultimately won that particular battle, Wanlockhead remains one of the most extraordinarily positioned communities in the UK, perched at 467 metres above sea, level in the wild border country between Scotland and England. This former lead mining village sits in a landscape so remote and challenging that it seems to exist in its own world. Surrounded by the Lowther Hills and the wild expanses of the southern uplands, Wanlockhead endures weather conditions that would challenge Arctic explorers, with winter temperatures that regularly plummet below -20 degrees Celsius and snowfalls that can isolate the village for weeks at a time. Mountain comparison. The southern uplands around Wanlockhead resemble the wilder parts of the Pennines, crossed with the isolation of Scottish Highland glens, rolling hills that hide deep valleys and sudden savage weather changes. What makes Wanlockhead truly remarkable is its history as Scotland's highest mining community. For over 300 years, this remote village was home to Europe's highest lead mines, with workings that extended deep into the surrounding hills. The miners who lived here developed a unique culture, isolated from the outside world for months at a time, and dependent entirely on their own resources for survival. The village's position in the southern uplands places it at the centre of some of Scotland's most mysterious landscape. These hills hide evidence of human activity stretching back to Neolithic times. Stone circles, ancient settlements, and burial mounds that suggest the area has been considered sacred for millennia. But Wanlockhead's most extraordinary feature is its relationship with the weather. The village sits at the meeting point of several climate systems, creating conditions so extreme that meteorologists have established permanent monitoring equipment here. The area experiences weather phenomena found nowhere else in Scotland. Temperature inversions that create surreal atmospheric effects, and wind patterns that seem to defy the local topography. The abandoned mine workings that honeycomb the surrounding hills create an underground world of extraordinary complexity. Local cavers have explored passages that extend for miles beneath the southern uplands, following seams and tunnels that connect to workings scattered across the entire region. During the Border River era, these hills served as hideouts for cattle raiders and outlaws who used the complex terrain to evade pursuing armies. Hidden valleys still contain the ruins of fortified settlements, and local historians believe significant archaeological treasures remain undiscovered in the remote areas around Wanlockhead. But perhaps most intriguingly, the village's extreme elevation and isolation have made it a natural laboratory for studying high-altitude phenomena. Researchers have documented atmospheric effects around Wanlockhead that typically occur only at much higher elevations, suggesting that the local topography creates unique conditions found nowhere else in Britain. Local residents, speaking privately, describe encounters that echo much older traditions. Lights moving across the hills that follow no known pattern. Acoustic phenomena that carry voices, impossible distances, and the persistent feeling that the landscape itself is watching and listening. What lies hidden in the abandoned mine workings beneath Wanlock Head? And why do atmospheric phenomena, typically associated with mountains twice as high, occur regularly in the southern uplands? Conclusion: Britain's vertical frontier. As we conclude our journey through these 10 extraordinary mountain settlements, one truth becomes inescapable. The United Kingdom harbours communities that exist at the very limits of what's possible in the British Isles. These aren't just villages that happen to be located in mountainous areas. They're places where the landscape itself has shaped human settlement in ways that create entirely unique ways of life. From Flash's record-breaking elevation to Malig's position at the edge of the Atlantic wilderness, from Bramer's Arctic temperatures to Wanlock Head's mining heritage, these communities represent humanity's ongoing negotiation with some of Britain's most challenging environments. Each has developed its own strategies for survival, its own relationship with the landscape, and its own unique culture shaped by elevation, isolation, and the constant presence of peaks that dwarf human ambition. What unites all these settlements is their residents' understanding that living in the mountains requires a different relationship with the natural world. Here, weather isn't just something you check on your phone. It's a force that can isolate you for weeks, test your preparedness, and demand respect for powers far greater than human convenience. These mountain towns preserve something precious in our increasingly connected world. The knowledge that there are still places where human settlement exists at the mercy of natural forces, where community bonds are forged by shared challenges, and where the landscape itself remains the dominant partner in the relationship between humanity and nature. But perhaps most remarkably, these communities continue to thrive and evolve. They've embraced their roles as gateways to adventure, centers of mountain culture, and guardians of traditions that stretch back centuries. They've learned to balance preservation of their unique character with the practical needs of modern life, creating hybrid communities that honor their past while embracing their future. The questions these towns raise about the limits of human settlement, about our relationship with extreme environments, and about the ways landscape shapes culture, become more relevant each year as climate change and urbanization transform our planet. These mountain communities offer examples of sustainable living, environmental adaptation, and community resilience that may prove increasingly valuable in our uncertain future. So the next time you find yourself craving authentic adventure, seeking communities that have maintained their connection to the natural world, or simply wanting to experience Britain's moss dew to thrive and evolve dramatic landscapes, remember these 10 mountain towns. They're still there, still testing the limits of what's possible, still offering the chance to experience life at elevations where the air is thin, the weather is wild, and every day brings a reminder that we share this island with forces far more powerful than ourselves. In an age of virtual experiences and artificial adventures, these mountain settlements preserve something irreplaceable: the opportunity to live, even briefly, in places where the landscape sets the rules, where human achievement is measured against mountain standards, and where the view from your window can literally take your breath away.